So we're in chapter 2.
I will answer both of those questions. One is now 8:45, that's the first question. Second question is about half an hour.
אך להיות גילוי בחינת באר זו צריך להיות חפרוע, קרוע. In order to reveal the well that comes from below. What's the well that comes from below? We said there's the life force that comes from above. And then as it percolates into a person's life, it turns into a well. It's supposed to turn into a well. A well that what? That takes the relatively clean water that came down and purifies it even more, and then makes it available to everybody around you like a well. To yourself, to everybody around you. You become, like you always say, you have to put Beit Chabad, Mishpachat so-and-so. Meaning that people know that when they come to this place, they're going to find fresh, clean spring water.
Yeah, you didn't do it.
And because of that, my stomach hurts. So how do you make this well? I'm not kidding. How do you make this well? He says there's two things that need to be done. What was the verse that we started with? That there was a song that they said for the well. Meaning, the Moshe Rabbeinu didn't bring the well. Why? Because we know that when they were in the desert, in the wilderness, there were 3 constant miracles. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who was responsible. In his merit, the manna came down. But the well was not in his merit. It was in the merit of Miriam, of his sister, his older sister, 7 years older than him. Why is she the well? Because we know that the feminine represents dealing with the physical, concrete, mundane world. And the feminine, its dynamic, its motion is always from below to above. The masculine is from above to below. It descends. So Moshe Rabbeinu brought the manna down from above to below. And Miriam brings the waters up from below to above. But he says it's not enough to have Miriam. Why is it not enough? Because they had to sing a song. Every time they would come to a new camp, they would sing a song. This is a very interesting thing. You don't see that Moshe Rabbeinu starts his speeches, his nevuas, his prophecies with a song. You don't. I think I told you this once. The Karlebach had this idea. It's a cute idea. How do you get people, here's how you explain things to people. He said, do you think that when God said, let there be light, he said, let there be light? He sang it. It's a crazy idea. But what did he just do? He turned all of Torah into Torah Sheba'al Peh. Why? Because Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition, how do you reach students? How do you start? With a nigun, with a joke. You have to do something that opens the heart. So that song that they sung, as they say, Ali be'er enula. It starts with, come up well, let us answer it. Meaning, you have to say things for things to come from below. You have to sing. It's not going to happen if you're gruff. And reality is not going to change because you're going to be a tough guy. It's going to change because you're going to entice it. In the same way, we like it, we don't like it. In the Zohar, the main mashal, the main parable for Torah is like she's a woman that you're wooing. How do you woo a woman? You don't come and say, and Shirim is a little bit like that, but the Zohar is very explicit. Why? Because it says, the Torah that comes from above, the Torah that's in the 5 books of Moses, you don't have to woo. You have to open and read. But if you want to actually understand the oral tradition, you want to understand what the written Torah is saying, it's a process. You have to entice it. You have to show that you're interested. You have to show that you're a nice guy. What does it mean to be a nice guy in Torah? It means that you come every day at the same hour and you learn at the same hour and you spend the time and you invest yourself in it. It's like a woman. She wants to see that you're serious. If you're serious, I'll give myself to you. If you're not serious, I don't want to give myself to you. So the well, that's what it's doing.
Know.
What?
I don't want to know.
What do you mean you don't want to know?
It's one of my father's.
One of the biggest problems with men is...
Don't want to know.
Okay. The biggest problem with men is they don't understand this. And especially especially since they've never even been taught this with Torah. So all the more so they don't know how to do it with their wives. But this is the number one thing. You have to learn how to speak that language. And that language says, it's called pitui. Okay? Pitui. How is that translated in Aramaic? No. Ishtadel. Ishtadlus. That's what it is. Pitui is ishtadlus. Ishtadlus in Hebrew is not in Hebrew. It's from Aramaic. And it means to woo.
There's another word.
To entice. Shidul. Shidul lidvar avera. What does it mean? To entice someone. But strangely enough, that's the word man ishtadel beoraita. They knew what they were writing in the Zohar. They weren't stupid. They knew Hebrew and they knew Aramaic. And when they write man ishtadel beoraita, means one who entices the Torah, because you have to entice it to become part of you. It doesn't work any other way. You can't just be a weekend warrior. You can't go to shir once a week and say, I'm. It has to be serious. But the same thing, you can't say you're married just because you have a ketubah. It doesn't work that way. If you really want to be married, the question is, how much have you enticed your wife? And when you say it with a wife, it sounds bad, but it's the same idea. In the end, it's learning the language, it's investing time in it, it's understanding what brings it close to you. So Torah has its own set of needs, and the world has its own set of needs, and people have their own set of needs, and your wife has her own set of needs. And over time, you learn it. Anyway, that's called chafarua karua. You need to learn how to excavate. You need to learn how to dig. What I meant to say is that enticing is after you've excavated and dug. Why? Because he says, before you can even get the water to come up, okay? Before you can even do it, who had the water come up to her? Rivka. Who else had the water come up to her? Rachel. It says that all the matriarchs had the water come up for them, meaning that they were already clean in the sense that they were ready to want Hashem. Okay? But usually, so it says it also there. There's a medrash that says the same thing. But the Rebbe has a sikha on this. Why it doesn't say it? I don't remember the sikha right now. There's a very, very important sikha about this topic. And because the Zohar asked that question. Why doesn't it say that about Sarah?
By the way, that's one of the reasons why people go to 770 Tishrei.
Because
the boys go to 770 and the girls go to 770.
Yeah.
They meet each other. They make shidduchim. Enormous number of
Yeah.
shidduchim. Why? Because of the 770 to live is a bear mind chayim. You make a shidduch
on the well. So, but in order to get to the water, you first have to dig it. Meaning that there is something that's blocking the water from coming up. Meaning, even in yourself, the fact that you're not a well yet for pure spring water. I'm not a well yet. We're not wells yet, and people don't come flocking, as opposed to, like you're saying, in 770, the people came flocking, and they still come flocking because they feel that there's something special here. The reason is because we're covered. There's ground that's a barrier to the water coming up. So there's two types of digging. There's the massive digging that you do with a crane or whatever, something like that. Then there's the little bits, the little pieces, the little work that needs to be done to fix the well. Now he's going back to the Tanya. He's saying the main topic of the Tanya is Ahava Mesuteret, is the hidden natural love that we have. So one would say, why do I even have to work so hard? You promised me. It says, this should be very close to me. It should be very easy for these waters to come out. Why are they not coming out? I says, because the waters that would come out naturally, that's what we call the concealed love that every Jew has as an inheritance from Avram. But it's concealed. How is it concealed? Because it's hidden by all this dirt
Garbage.
The garbage. Where did it come from? That comes from our animal soul. That comes from the way we've lived, and we have to clean ourselves up in the same way that a person who doesn't feel well, they go to the naturopath, not to the regular doctor. The regular doctor doesn't want to hear about these things because he can't sell somebody a diet. The naturopath will tell him, look, you have to clean up your act. You have to start eating like this. You have to be like that. How long is it going to take? 1 year for every 10 years of life. Forget it. I don't want to hear about it. Torah is not very different, except maybe it doesn't take a year for every 10 years of life. Maybe it takes 18 months. I don't know. But it's the same idea. If you don't clean it up, don't expect something natural to come out. You have to force, you have to submit the other side in you. Both in things that are forbidden and in things that are permitted. Even in the things that are permitted, what you need is all you need, and not what is, how do you say motarot? Luxuries. The luxuries are the same thing as something that's forbidden. Masha mutar mutar. Masha asur asur. Masha mutar lo tzarich. That what is forbidden. That I'm certainly taking out of my life. But masha mutar, and what is permitted, most chances are you don't need it. And if you don't need it, it's like it's forbidden. You don't need it. It's almost the same thing as forbidden. That's the famous Hayom Yom. And you also, it's not enough to stop with the actions. You have to also get to the will, to the what you want. You have to change the things you want. And you have to show that you invest time in Torah and to learn more than what you're used to. שכל הדברים האלה וכיוצא בהן הן בחינת חפירה וקריאה להעביר כוחות החומריות מצד הקליפה ולבטלן בבחינת ביטול לגמרי, בטל רצונך כדי לגלות מצפוני אהבה מהאלם אל הגילוי. And it says this every person has. Now, what does he mean by natural love? Now he tells us. Natural love, even though in the Tanya I don't remember that he says this clearly, but that's what he means, the whole Tanya. He means that natural love is where you're connected to the world of emanation. Natural love is always there. Why is it concealed? Because Elem v'gilui. He calls it nistar. But anywhere you say nistar in Chassidus, it's the same thing as saying ne'elam. Basically, you're saying the same.
Avram Avinu dug wells, and Yisro dug wells. And they didn't have all these problems.
No, it says kistamum plishtim. Avraham had to start something new. Avraham had to start something new. Because Avram, as much as he was holy himself, but we know where he came from. Meat and tahol mitameh. He has to leave the house of Terach. It's hard. It's a hard job. But also understand that it's not just that Avram is doing it for himself. Avram is doing this to show a path, and so it could be that he's showing an example, not through himself. Meaning he's saying, I need to do this because everybody does this. In the same way that the Rebbe would daven in the minyan, even though he didn't daven in the minyan, he went back and davened in his room. So why go out in the first place? Because you have to show that you're with everybody. You have to show that this is the way for everybody to go. I'm special. You're right. I have my own needs. I'm not built the same way. But every normal person, this is what they need to do. So Avram could be showing that that's what needs to be done. But anyway, this is a very important thing, that what we call Ahava Mesuteret is really what in Zohar is called, that every one of us has his root in the world of emanation. So why is it not, by the way, so I don't want to get into it, because it's a topic that needs a whole different discussion. ובחינת חפירה וקריאה זו נעשה, זה משיחיסטים. ובחינת חפירה וקריאה זו נעשה על ידי בחינת שרים ונדיבי ים. And this digging and excavating is done by two groups of powers in the soul that are called Sarim v'Nedivei Yam. The ministers, or the, how do you say?
The generous ones of the people.
Okay. Who are the ministers? Ministers are the patriarchs. Uvchira avotu Yaakov is very interesting, because Yaakov didn't dig any wells. We don't know that he dug wells. So what are we talking about? Kinyan ve'Elokei Yaakov. He gets into a very interesting discussion here.
You need to, because the river rose up at his appearance when he came to the Yarden. He wanted to get across.
But still, you would expect, if you're saying that he digs, so where did he dig a well? So Yaakov didn't dig in that sense. Let's see what he did. He has a different explanation. He says, even, what I mean here really is not the digging of the wells. What I'm talking about is something else. Digging of the wells is a symbol for being able to overcome your nature. That's what it really means. And that's why you asked about Avram. Avram needed to dig wells. Yitzchak needed to dig wells. He needed to overcome his nature. So first of all, yes, he needed to overcome his nature. Even to go do the Akedah, Avram had to overcome his nature, his nature to be loving kindness. And in that respect, he gained might, fear of God. But who represents overcoming his nature more, he says, than Yaakov? Yaakov is the most. Yes. Mark asked the question and the answer is yes. Okay. It doesn't matter. He knows. It will take us off track. So, he says, כי ביעקב נאמר כי שרית, לשון שררה וממשלה עם אלוקים הוא עניין הצמצום. Yaakov is the great warrior. He's the one who overcame nature the most. Because what does it say by him? To be a minister means you conquered. So you conquered, you ruled over Elokim. It means they're an angel, as it were. But, because angels sometimes are called Elokim. In this case, it was Esav's angel. It's what we call the animal soul. What we call today the animal soul. Okay. And by the way, I told you that when we walked just now, that this all came from progressivism, is all a fight against Christianity. It's really a fight against Esav's angel. But it turns out that for the Jew it became a fight against religion. So it turned from being something against Christianity into something that's against religion, against Judaism also. So it came to serve his angel. It's very strange. It's a very strange thing. It's like what the Yetzer Hara did, what the Samach Mem did in the last 200 years. It said, I'm sacrificing my queen to checkmate you. The queen was Christianity. He sacrificed it. He said, I'm giving it up. Take it. Here. Kill it. And I'll checkmate you. Because it's the strangest thing. You'll be so taken by the fact that it fell. You won't understand that you're falling with it. You just won't get it. Because what's the difference between the name Havaya and the name Elokim? We were talking about this many times. Because Havaya represents the unchanging nature. Meaning that there's no change in the world. Everything is just God. What's the change that we see? Nigle v'nichse. Here I told you. Okay? What the Medrash calls nigle v'nichse. Sometimes it's revealed, sometimes it's concealed. Sometimes this is revealed, sometimes it's concealed. What? The nature of godliness in the world. So really what you're seeing is a series of pictures, as we explained it many times. And you're seeing this as a motion picture. You're seeing it as if it's changed. But it's not changed. He's just showing you different parts of the picture at every moment. And that's why it looks to you like things are changing. That's Havaya. And again, everything we know about Havaya. There's nothing but God, and everything before him is like nothing, and so on, which really is the picture of the world of emanation. And that's the picture that Moshe Rabbeinu sees. Utmunat Havaya Yabit. He sees the picture of Havaya, meaning he sees reality the way that Havaya shows it.
It's not our reality.
What?
It's not our reality.
It is your reality. When you say Shema, it's your reality. For 1 minute every day, or 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, or 4 minutes, depending on how much you use it for, it becomes your reality. And yet, there's the opposite picture, which you said is our reality. The fact that the world seems to be something separate from godliness, and it seems to be changing, and it seems to be progressing and moving and so on. And there's history and there's all these things happening. That's with the name Elokim. Which conceals and contracts the power to reveal godliness. And that's what creates the world, which in Hebrew means to conceal. And Yaakov is the one who conquers the name Elokim. So he says it's not just the angel. It's the whole name Elokim. Meaning he's the one who perfected Abraham's faith. Abraham only believed. Okay, he only believed that everything is one. He only believed it. But Yaakov actually saw it. And not only did he was able to fight, he was the first person.
When you say believed it, you said Yaakov for both of them.
No, Avram only believed it.
You said Yaakov.
Sorry. Yaakov also fought for it. It's something completely different. What's the difference? That's exactly what we just said. That it's not enough to receive the revelation from above. It has to come from below. Yaakov fighting with the angel of Esav, or really in his time, it means fighting with, is there a divine providence or is there not? That's really what he was fighting for.
Avram did fight. Avram fought when he took Yitzhak.
Avram fought for this belief, which is very abstract, that God is one. How much people understood that, what they understood, very, very difficult to know. You see that Avram left after him, not clear what he left after him. Not clear. A mishmash. A balagan. Not saying Chaz v'Shalom he was wrong. I'm just saying that it didn't culminate, it didn't gel into a people. But what Yaakov did, because he came from below, he's from below above, he's saying. He's the example of somebody digging a well. Why? Because digging the well means getting rid of the picture of reality that is divorced from godliness, in which godliness is not everything. That's what it means. It means to uncover. Okay? And same whether you dig a well. So Yaakov was the one who did this from below to above. Sarita. And that's his chiddush. And because he was able to do it from below to above, he's a well. So he created the people. Avram wasn't able to do that. For all his greatness, he wasn't able to do that. It still needed two more generations.
Yaakov was sitting on the shoulders of Yitzhak and on the shoulders of Avram.
You know, I'm not trying to take away from their importance. I'm just saying,
no, I'm just saying
that it didn't leave.
You need to have a bigger picture.
Nachon. Without Avram, there'd be no Yaakov. But it became Yaakov, it became a people, Yisrael, which means that you've conquered this angel, this thing that blinds you to godliness, that everything is godliness. There's no real change here. It's all just God.
How important Yaakov is.
That's why I thought you would like it. Yeah. Anyway. V'imanashim. V'Yaakov ubchinat tzar Moshe al bchinat Elokim shelo yastir v'yalim. So he is the one who really digs the wells, even though he's never dug a well. But he does the action in its most important way, which is to completely vanquish the dirt, the thing that's covering up the real reality. And he's the first one who says that Havaya will be my Elokim. Nobody said this before him. And now you understand where his children learned to say Shema Yisrael Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad. This was the source. When Yaakov fled from Esav, or, there's two different stories. One is that he fled from it, ran away from it. Rivka came to him and told him, look, you got to get out of here. He's going to kill you. But then there's another story. The Rivka came to Yitzchak and said to him, if Yaakov ends up marrying somebody from here, I'm finished. I won't be able to deal with it. Like Esav. Esav married the Canaanite women. She can't take another one of her sons marrying these idolaters. So she says to him, we should send him back to my brother. Yeah, the big tzaddik, my brother. He'll find a wife there. Because in my family, and the Rebbe has a tremendous sikha about this. Not the place or the time.
Has good genes.
Yeah, something like that. That the genes, in the end, the spiritual genes are more important than the neighborhood you've created. Anyway, in any case, it doesn't really matter. The point is, there's two different stories, and he flees. And when he goes to Haran on the way, he says that if Vaya Havaya li le'Elokim, Havaya will be my God. Meaning, in the end, When did it happen? Over 20 years it didn't happen. He lived with Hashgacha Pratis. He understood that it was all by Hashgacha. He didn't get angry. He continued to work for love, and he did what he needed to do. He understood that these 20 years working instead of learning were for his benefit. But he didn't finish until the last day when he was in Haran. The last day he was in Chutz La'aretz. And the last day that he was in Chutz La'aretz, that's when he fought the angel, and that's when he became Yisrael. That's when for him, right, Havaya became Elokim. Havaya became his God. Meaning, he no longer saw, it's like what the Alter Rebbe said on his deathbed. I no longer see the beam in the ceiling. I see the power of God enabling the beam. So that's what it means. Shema Yisrael. Why Israel? Why didn't they say Shema Yaakov? If his name was Yaakov, why did they say Shema Yisrael? They called him Yaakov. They continue to call him Yaakov. Why did suddenly they say Shema Yisrael? Right? The tribes called their father Yaakov. They didn't call him Yisrael. That was his, call it noble name. They didn't address him by that name. But that's what that name means. That's why you can't say Shema Yaakov Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Yisrael means I've won the battle against the angel. The angel, meaning the powers of angels, are basically, there are many things. I always get carried away with my definitions. Obviously, when I make a definition, it's not to say it's only this. This is one of the main definitions of angels, is what we call the powers of nature, the laws of nature. So the laws of nature get you thinking that that's what's going on here. They confuse you. It's not the science is wrong, it's right. These are the laws of nature, but these are only angels. They're not God.
Science is not exact anyway.
Science changes in the same way that the angels change. Why does science change? Because every time Hashem brings down a whole host of new angels that science has never heard of. Okay? There's a thinking.
Science is only based on theory, it's not based on fact.
No. Let's say they even got it right. I'm not talking about instrumentalism. Let's say science has it perfectly right. It doesn't matter. 100 years is going to be a whole different set of angels. It really doesn't matter. What happened to the old angels? Either they're completely gone, and you throw that theory out completely, or they've burnt up and they're something a little bit different.
The angels' old age home.
Yeah, something like that. It's very interesting. The science hasn't picked this up yet. It continues to imagine that somehow there's a continuity in knowledge. And they don't see that there's no continuity. There have been things that have been thrown out completely. What are you saying? The old people were idiots? They didn't understand what they were looking at? Of course they understood. In their terms, right? They didn't have math maybe to describe it. But they understood what they were looking at. They weren't stupid. What happened? The angels changed. What's the big deal? Why do you think that the world... Where did this... Right? It's called uniformity of nature. Where did that come from? It came from Occam's razor. But that's... Occam's razor. You know Occam. The 12th century or 13th century, whatever it was, kind of monk. Whatever. That out of all the possible explanations, the simplest one is the right one. What's called in the sages, tafasta merube lo tafasta. Don't try to catch too much. Yeah, the simplest explanation is always the best. Okay, simplest explanation for why there's no uniformity of nature is because it's not uniform. It changes. It just changes. Not to understand this is not to... Why? Because nature was meant to serve man. So every time Hashem brings down the angels that are needed for that period of time. It'll be very sad, but it could be that in 100 years, iPhones won't work anymore.
Say 5 years before that.
So I'm not talking about the fact that they won't work because their battery will run out. I'm talking about that batteries won't work, not because they ran out. That the whole principles of electricity, the way we understand them, won't work anymore. And then we'll say, we'll have something else. And then we'll say about the Kadmonim, the ancients, from Steve Jobs' time. How in the world did they get this thing to work? It's such a primitive idea. It's stories. They'll see our movies and they'll say, this is all, they made this up. There was no real iPhone. It's an artifact. It's not a real thing. It didn't work. It was all pulleys and wheels, the way that we say about miracles. Okay. Again, it's not uniform. It changes. So he says the same thing here. V'im anashim hem hamelachim. Oh, you also need the angels. That's what he said. You have to use the powers of nature that are available at your time. הם המלאכים, כמו שכתוב באברהם, וירא והנה 3 אנשים ניצבים עליו, שבאו 3 מלאכים בשביל 3 שליחויות. לפי שאין מלאך אחד יכול לעשות 2 שלוחיות. כי המלאך הוא שליח ההשפעה שהוא בחינת כלי, שבו ועל ידו עובר את ההשפעה. So he's saying the men here, what he calls the נדיבי עם, עם אלוקים ועם אנשים. And the נדיבי עם here are those who are generous. He's not generous from the people. He's saying these are the powers of nature. This is an amazing statement. You have to use the powers of nature that are available at your time. You can't ignore it. If nature is giving you these and these abilities, you have to use them in the right way. Meaning, in other words, I would probably say that these are. You would have a tendency to say that when we dig a well, the heavy machinery would be like the angels. That's true. For us, the heavy machinery is the angels. It's the powers of nature that we have at our disposal. And the small things, they're like the people. They're like but it's the other way around, really. Because the heavy machinery is not what counts. What counts really, again, when you're talking about psychologically in the person, is that first of all, you have this inspiration, this tremendous inspiration, that it can actually be done. That inspiration, that comes from the sarim. That comes from the patriarchs, the powers of the soul inside you. And then the little things, you use the powers of nature. Okay? So he's putting here definitely the powers of the psyche higher than the powers of nature around us. In other words, the fact that there is a cell phone is a small detail. If there's not a person behind it, using it the right way, then it doesn't do its job. Okay?
What are you doing tomorrow?
Learning with you. At 8.
No, I'm not going to be able to get. I'm going to a wedding tomorrow, far away. By the time I get back, it'll be late.